sometime on the vast Wyoming frontier, as a dying sun bled across endless prairie grass, an 8-year-old girl named Clara May Benton stumbled through dust thick enough to choke hope itself. She had been thrown from her stepmother's wagon, discarded like an unwanted burden, and left to die beneath a sky too big for a child to face alone. Her bare feet bled, her dress hung in tatters, and the doll her real mother made years ago trembled in her small hands as she whispered to it like a friend she was desperate not to lose. Hunger gnawed through her ribs, thirst tightened her throat with a burning so sharp it bordered on panic. The prairie wind hissed through the grass like something alive, circling her, testing her. And somewhere far beyond her field of vision, coyotes began their low, rising calls. Clara's small voice broke against the growing dark as she begged the empty horizon for help, any help, before her legs finally buckled beneath her. She collapsed in the cold dirt, believing she would never stand again. Then, through the last blade of sunlight, a horse appeared on the ridge. A rider sat tall in the saddle, a man carved by decades of loss and silence. Samuel Holt, the wealthiest rancher in 3 counties, had climbed that ridge only to escape the ghosts of a home too empty to live in. But the moment his spyglass caught the image of a child crawling on the earth, he moved. The stallion thundered down the hillside as if pulled by fate, and in that single breath between daylight and darkness, 2 shattered souls collided on the open prairie, one abandoned, one bereaved, each about to change the other's life forever. Samuel reached the child moments before the night swallowed her. Kneeling in the grass, he saw eyes far too tired for someone so young, eyes that carried bruises the prairie hadn't given her. Clara whispered the truth in tremors, her father dead, her stepmother cruel, her abandonment deliberate. Samuel lifted her carefully, as if she were something the world had mishandled for too long, and placed her onto his horse. She slept against his chest before they even reached the valley. At the Double H Ranch, Maria Alvarez, Samuel's steadfast housekeeper, opened her arms to the broken girl without hesitation. Through warm lamplight and soft murmurs in Spanish, Clara was bathed, fed, and tucked into a bed that dwarfed her tiny frame. Over the next days, her steps grew steadier, her cheeks filled with color, and the fear behind her eyes flickered but didn't vanish. Trauma doesn't surrender all at once. Samuel watched as she learned the rhythms of ranch life, her small hands brushing the gentle mare Buttercup, her laughter beginning to echo across the yard. He showed her the hills, the herds, the sunrise breaking over land he once believed was only meant to remind him of what he'd lost. But each evening, Clara's fragile voice slipped through the quiet. "You won't send me away, will you?" And the truth carved itself into Samuel with every question. This child wasn't just surviving here. She was mending something inside him, too. When she finally asked if she could call him Papa, his heart, long frozen by grief, cracked open. For the first time in a decade, Samuel Holt felt the stirring of something that wasn't loneliness. It was purpose. It was family. It was hope. As Clara healed, danger gathered quietly beyond the horizon. In town, word spread of the rancher who'd taken in a stray girl, whispers fueled by curiosity and by the wrong ears. A federal marshal arrived first, demanding to know why Samuel held a child with no legal claim. Clara shook beneath the scrutiny, but her testimony, small, trembling, unwavering, told the truth of her abandonment. The marshal, seeing the life she'd found, chose mercy and warned Samuel that the world wouldn't be so forgiving forever. That warning became prophecy when Martha Blake, Clara's stepmother, slithered back into the territory with a new husband and a new story. She claimed Clara had run away, that she'd searched tirelessly, that she wanted her back. But greed stained her words. She wanted Clara for labor, for profit, for the cruel ease of domination she had once enjoyed. Samuel, fearing the law's preference for blood ties, turned to the one solution that could strengthen their claim: marriage. Maria, steady, strong, quietly loving, offered herself not out of obligation but out of devotion to the child already calling her mama. Together, they traveled to Cheyenne, where a judge listened, measured their intentions, and married them under the warm afternoon sun. Clara stood between them, holding wildflowers as if holding the future in her small hands. The Hall family returned home stronger, united, and determined. But even as they settled into their new life, they knew Martha Blake was coming. She wanted Clara back, and she would use the law, lies, or violence to get her. Trouble arrived one quiet morning when the Children's Aid Society and a grim deputy stepped onto the Holt porch. They demanded Clara be surrendered pending investigation. But Clara clung to Samuel's side, her small voice trembling as she insisted she would die if taken back. The officials left with stern warnings, promising to return. That afternoon, Martha and her new husband Cyrus arrived in a wagon heavy with arrogance and entitlement. They stood before the ranch demanding Clara be handed over, twisting lies into polished speeches they believed would fool the law. But the ranch hands flanked Samuel like an unspoken wall, rifles ready. Maria stood between Clara and danger, her voice sharp with a mother's fire as she refused to allow an armed man near her child. The confrontation cracked when Martha revealed her true motives, shouting that Clara owed her labor, that she had been nothing but a burden. The words fell like the final nail in her coffin: witnessed, documented, undeniable. Samuel's attorney, Bartholomew Preston, arrived with the force of a blade through smoke, gathering statements, preparing for the legal war ahead. Clara, brave beyond her years, recounted the starvation, the beatings, the cold abandonment on the trail. Maria described her condition upon arrival. Samuel gave his testimony of the moment he found her crawling across the prairie. The case would be decided in court under the scrutiny of the entire territory. But one truth bound them together. Clara was not returning to the woman who left her to die, not while Samuel Holt still drew breath. The courthouse in Medicine Bow filled with ranchers, townsfolk, mothers clutching their own children, as if the story unfolding might reach out and snatch them, too. Martha entered with painted innocence, her dress neat, her lies polished. But the truth dragged behind her like a shadow she couldn't hide. Preston called Clara first. She walked to the stand with trembling hands, her braid brushing her back like a protective hand. In a quiet, unshaking voice, she told the court about the starvation, the beatings, and the moment Martha drove away as the prairie swallowed her cries. Gasps rippled through the room. Even the judge's stern face softened around the edges. Samuel testified next, describing the girl he found moments from death. Maria spoke of healing bruises, malnourishment, and nightmares that clawed through the dark. Town witnesses confirmed her fear, her hunger, her transformation. And then, cornered by her own arrogance, Martha Blake snapped. She confessed she had left Clara because she was dead weight, that she expected the child to earn her keep, that she deserved compensation for the debts Clara's father left behind. The room erupted. The judge silenced them with a single crack of his gavel and delivered a ruling that soothed the territory's collective soul. He terminated Martha's parental rights. He recognized Samuel and Maria Holt as Clara's legal parents, permanently, irrevocably. Clara ran to them through tears, whispering, "I'm really yours now?" And Samuel Holt, who had once believed the world had taken everything from him, held his daughter and whispered, "Forever, sweetheart, forever." Life after the ruling blossomed as if the ranch itself breathed relief. Clara woke each morning to Maria's warm cooking and Samuel's steady footsteps in the hall. Lessons filled her days, reading beside the fire, arithmetic at the kitchen table, Spanish songs Maria sang while mending clothes. The ranch hands taught her how to rope, how to track cattle through the grass, how to tell a storm by the movement of the birds. Buttercup became her closest companion, her gentle soul carrying Clara across fields she once feared. She learned to ride with strength in her back, confidence in her hands, laughter rising into the sky where once she had only cried. Samuel watched her transformation with awe. This child, starved, abandoned, broken, had become sunlight in his quiet world. Maria, who once walked the corridors like a caretaker in a mausoleum, now moved with purpose, with joy, with the pride of a mother who'd regained something precious she thought she'd lost forever. At night, Clara curled up with her storybook, the silver locket Samuel gifted her resting against her heart, now holding a photograph of the three of them, proof written in ink and memory that she belonged. And though shadows of fear still lingered in corners, nightmares of Martha's voice, flashes of loneliness on the trail, they came less often. When they did, Clara simply slipped into her parents' room, and Maria wrapped her in a warm quilt while Samuel rested a hand over her small back. Safety, once a dream Clara didn't dare name, had become the fabric of her life. Seasons shifted across the Double H Ranch, and Clara grew with them, stronger, braver, more certain of the place she held in her family's world. Samuel took her riding at dawn, watching her guide Buttercup with a natural instinct he knew came from something deeper than talent. It came from survival. Maria nurtured her curiosity, teaching her recipes passed down through generations, telling stories of Mexico, of home, of love that endures loss. The ranch hands treated Clara like their own, cheering her first solo gallop, carving her name into the barn wall where every Holt family member was listed. Visitors stopped by often, eager to meet the girl whose story had traveled farther than even the cattle trails. They greeted her not with pity, but with admiration. She had become a symbol in the territory, a reminder that cruelty can be overcome by compassion, that chosen family can be stronger than blood. As the years passed, Clara no longer introduced herself as the girl abandoned on the trail, but as Clara Holt, daughter of Samuel and Maria, rider of Buttercup, keeper of stories. Every night she sat on the porch between her parents, staring out at the prairie that had once threatened her life but now symbolized endless possibility. She asked Samuel once, softly, "Papa, why did you save me?" Samuel rested a weathered hand atop hers and answered with truth that lived deep in his bones. "Because you were meant to be mine, Clara, and I was meant to find you." In the hush of the Wyoming twilight, Clara finally believed it. Sometime years later, when Clara was older and the ranch bustled with the rhythm of a family complete, she would ride Buttercup to that same ridge where Samuel first saw her, a tiny, staggering shape against a dying sun. And she would sit there, gazing over the vast sweep of land, feeling the wind that once threatened to erase her now lifting her hair like a gentle hand. Below her, the Double H Ranch glowed with lamplight and life. Maria's laughter drifted through open windows, Samuel's voice carried from the barn and the warmth of home. Her home, wrapped around her like a second skin. She no longer feared the horizon, she embraced it. For the world had once taken everything from her, only to give her something far greater. A family sewn together not by blood, but by love fierce enough to defy death, law, and fate itself. And the story of Clara May Holt lived on in every corner of Wyoming. The abandoned girl who was found, the rancher who became a father again, the housekeeper who became a mother, and the family built from the ashes of heartbreak. If you're listening to this now, wherever you are, let their story remind you that even in the darkest moments, someone can find you, someone who sees your worth when the world tries to bury it. And if this story touched you, I'd be honored if you liked, commented, and subscribed so more listeners can discover tales like this one. Now tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it where you are right now?